Welcome back to the First Podcast, everyone. It's a very special episode. It's our very own very special episode because we did all these bonus episodes during season 8 while season 8 was airing because I think we were a little more immediately emotionally invested in the show as it was airing at the time. And then I think we both kind of went on journeys throughout season 8 and after. And like, although we've been watching season 9 and have had reactions to it, we just haven't been quite as, I think, feeling that urgent need to report back with our thoughts outside of like Twitter. So I thought it would be good to do at least one season 9 episode where we talk about our thoughts on this past season now that it's all out. People have asked us about it. I think the people want it. And we are for the people. We're for giving the people what they want.
Listen, we are not only for giving the people for what they want, we are also for giving people. And in the interest of forgiving, I'm glad we're doing a season 9 bonus episode because I don't know if you recall, but our season 8 wrap up was scathing. It was
I do remember we titled,
Jane.
I don't really remember what we talked about, but I remember we titled it A Holistic Failure.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny that we were so angry at season 8 because like now you guys, I don't even really remember what happened in that season. I remember that Bobby died. I remember that, well, okay, here's, in hindsight, like, about season 8, I think the most annoying thing is that, well, okay, a lot of this will be about Buddie, so let's just get into Buddie right away. In season 8, it really felt like this one thing was happening, like, throughout 8A, and even into 8B, and then all of a sudden it was like Tim Minear just like got hit in the head with a rock and was like, actually, I want to do something completely different and I want to forget about that and just push that to the side. And that was kind of, that's frustrating as a viewer. I think he does have a habit of doing that. Like we've seen that before. And I think there's even some of that in season 9 as well. But it was like very jarring and very frustrating in season 8.
But it was also the other hackneyed elements. I mean, it was the poor sticking of the landing with the Bobby death arc. It was honestly the poor execution of that arc in general.
That was just bizarre. Like I'm still waiting for some kind of Robert Nash Han, yes. I'm still waiting for some sort of like Peter Krause. I pronounced his name correctly that time. Okay, everybody clap for me. I'm still waiting for some kind of like Peter Krause like tell-all memoir to come out in like 5 or 10 years being like, this is what actually went down, because the suddenness of Bobby's death really does feel like, if not some sort of behind the scenes scandal, maybe Tim Minear like suddenly got that showrunner thing where he got really mad at fans for like predicting what he was writing, and so he decided to just like throw a curveball in there to totally disrupt everything. I hate when showrunners have that mentality, by the way, where they're like, oh, fans are like theorizing correctly, fans are predicting things, I have to change course. It's like, it's okay if your story is predictable. That's actually, you know, can be a sign that your writing makes sense and follows through.
Yeah. It means that you can follow the story. It means that you can follow the arc. George R.R. Martin had a quote about that, you know, for all of our eagle-eyed Lindsay Ellis viewers who remember her Game of Thrones videos. He had a great quote about that where he said, you know, if you write the book that the butler did it, and then somebody guesses that the butler did it, and you change course and say that the chambermaid did it, then you screw up the whole book. And some writers do that, and it's always a mistake. You know what I mean? And yeah, I totally agree with you that it felt like he just like took the off ramp, you know, at the very last second.
Like when someone is about
looking
to miss their exit, or kind of has missed their exit, and they just like drive right over the lines anyway, endangering everyone else on the road.
Crashing through like the barrels that are like filled with water or whatever those are.
Right.
That's what it
just
felt
going
like in
right
season
off
8.
that
but, like,
barrier, through the barrier.
In season 9. I will say it didn't feel like that, and it didn't feel like that for interesting reasons in my opinion, because we didn't take, and maybe I'm wrong to say this, but it didn't feel like they were making as sweeping story moves as they had maybe been attempting to in season 8.
Agree.
You know what I mean? And I actually think that for like a recovery season like this after the backlash of season 8, that while frustrating necessarily especially in like towards the end of 9A. I actually thought that was to this season's benefit in the sense
in
that
many
like
ways,
I
yeah.
wasn't getting angry.
No, exactly. I am right there with you because I thought, okay, I have a bit of an itemized agenda for this meeting, this episode, you guys.
This meeting
I thought,
of the minds that's happening
yes,
here.
yes. I thought that we would sort of go with a bit of a structure. I thought first we would start with general thoughts and kind of share some of our ups and downs, and then we would talk about Buddie because we know you all want to know about Buddie, and because Ryan and I saw some very interesting polarized reactions from a Buddie perspective to the end of season 9 and season 9 as a whole.
Say so.
And we've got to talk about that. Everybody's being so normal, you guys.
It's a very normal time to be a Buddie shipper.
I think we should talk a little about Theo, the sort of Buck gets a kid storyline, because that one has also been like very interestingly polarized. And then I asked you all on Twitter and on YouTube to give us some season 9 hot takes, and you did. And I think for the rest of our discussion to like get into more details of storylines, we could kind of share your hot takes and discuss, you know, do we agree, do we not agree, our thoughts. So we will be airing all of your grievances and
all
and
of your
praise.
tea, all of your laundry. Our goddamn Twitter followers who we love, you know.
Yes. So getting into general thoughts, you're like reading my mind, Ryan. I think, yes, my takeaway is that this season was all right. And notably, I thought it was a kind of steady and uneventful season, which I realize is a crazy thing to say about a season where Hen and Athena went to space and, you know, a ton of other objectively dramatic things happened. A bunch of characters almost died a bunch of times, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, compared to a lot of other recent seasons, you know, there were ups and downs, but they were really not as extreme of ups and downs as I'm used to in the recent seasons of the show. And I felt like you, I found myself getting angry at the show a lot less than I have been in like seasons 7 and 8. And I didn't even hate season 8, but there were still those moments where I was like, oh, this is really bad, like at times.
Yeah.
Season 9 had maybe only like 1 or 2 of those moments. And on the whole, one thing that makes it non-controversial, like, we'll get to it with the Buddie thing, but, like, the fact that Buck and Eddie didn't have love interests at all for the whole thing, you know, no characters got killed
Except
off.
for those unicorn hunters, basically.
Yes, and that doesn't really count as love interest. That's just people Buck had sex with.
I mean, they certainly made love, didn't they?
Yeah, but was it interesting? Ooh.
No. Ooh.
Nobody died except, okay, R.I.P. Abuela. No main characters died, etc. Yeah, and I wonder if, kind of like you're implying, if perhaps that was an intentional move to kind of keep this season a little more like dialed back, which again, I'm like seeing images from the season flash in my mind, and I'm like, well, that I guess it wasn't like dialed back per se. but
people know
like
what you mean.
Norman
Like, I
Bates.
assume if you're listening to this, you watched the season, so you know what we mean when we say this, right? Like, it is true that, like, you know, things were dialed back. I have to assume it was more so because, if anything, it might have been subconscious. You know, this like, they saw what went down with the Bobby death thing, how tumultuous that was, both for audiences and also for seemingly the actors on the show. And they said, so we don't want to rock the boat too hard this show.
We don't want
know
Kenny
that if we
Choi
fuck
to
up
resign
again,
in outrage because he misses his
like,
boyfriend, Peter Krause.
We don't want to make like everyone rage quit our show that's in the fandom that's like keeping discussion about it online
and
afloat,
yet,
you know what I mean?
Hilariously, despite, in my opinion, like a very kind of chill and what felt like a non-controversial and like finale, a bunch of people seemingly are rage quitting the show, but we'll get to that.
They are. We'll get to that, but like it's very special to me.
It's pretty funny.
It's very special. It's not exactly the epic highs and lows of high school football this season, but in some ways I
prefer that. My nervous system prefers that.
The consistency. I agree with you. I prefer the consistency of kind of the baseline of this season. I was very tentative in the first half of it, and I will say I do think the back half of this season is a lot stronger
I would agree.
than the front half. But I just want to start off with the positives. Like, I really enjoyed the space arc. I didn't like the last episode that much because I thought it was kind of like droned on a little bit too long. But I enjoyed the space arc. I thought the first 3 episodes of the season were really solid and genuinely funny and watchable TV.
Yeah.
I think like the Dia de los Muertos episode was really good. I fell off like a little bit like between like I want to say episode 6 and episode roughly like episode like 10, 11,
there is a reason for that in my opinion, and I will get to that.
I enjoyed like the Harry storyline becoming a firefighter. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but I was kind
really
of
into
do.
that as well. I thought it was just kind of a nice, like, kind of straightforward, almost good old-fashioned 911, like kind of a wholesome, but also like just something that made sense in a way and was executed in like a pretty good way.
Yeah, and a good way to get in a new Scrappy-Doo while keeping it in the family, like within the established world of the show. And then, I think the last 6 episodes really worked for me. I know that you have some hot takes about one of those episodes, but I think all of the last 6 episodes...
just that it's a little overrated or that people's buddy goggles often kind of make them just not even really able to be thinking about, like, was it a good episode on more of a technical writing level? But that's to be expected, I guess. Yeah, I would say...
and I do agree with that, but I also really like the last 6 episodes, and also the Lone Star crossover was fun, even if all of the actors on that show are weird, doing,
I would
like,
say.
Especially if those 3 guys are just doing this,
I feel
the
like
least.
we haven't, okay. After general thoughts, we can also talk about the crossover. I would say the high points for me were, like we said, this sort of general consistency, because I think that's something that I really appreciate about the early seasons of 911 that I think we've discussed, doing this show. We've seen a lot of real, just consistent quality in like our favorite seasons, like seasons 1, 2, 4, etc. It's not so much that the show is always fantastic or always the most interesting thing in the world, but there's this sense of consistency where you're not having these insane epic highs and lows. And obviously it can be fun to have epic highs and lows. I feel like that's why you've always said you prefer, like, I think it was that you preferred like season 7 to season 6 because you enjoyed that it had epic highs and lows. And while I get that, I think I would honestly take the sort of more boring consistency of something like season 6 over like having my shit rocked all the time and just feeling like I never really know where I stand, or like something about the recent seasons has also felt like, because there are so many crazy big swings, it doesn't always feel like the characterization is consistent. I don't always feel like I understand what the show is. It makes it feel a lot less grounded. So I appreciate that consistency, and I liked that it was back a little bit in this season.
Well, I want to take a moment to I noticed that and I want to clarify that, like, I get that I'm contradicting myself a little bit. The epic highs and lows of like season 7 versus like steady, mediocre season 6, like what makes season 7 like work more for me than season 6 is that it's only 10 episodes. You know what I mean? So
it has that going for it.
I can do the epic highs and lows in a shorter season, but in a season like season 8 where it's really drawn out, you really start to notice it more, and you have more of those lows to sit with. So while I do think that, like, I'll prefer a messy thing for the highs. You'll stand by your
appreciation of season 7.
But I also think that for an 18-episode season, especially because the baseline this season has been higher than season 6, probably a lot higher than season 6, in my opinion, then that's more so where I'm going to gravitate towards for, an 18-episode season or a 22-episode season or what have you.
And to be fair, season 6... I say that season 6 had like a more consistent quality, but honestly, season 6 was boring and it had some epic lows without any epic highs. Like it had
a pretty consistent low quality.
It had it would be like kind of fine, wholesome 911, and then you would have an epic low. Like, in my opinion, the Buck Comb Dream episode, or the Eddie and Buck both getting really generic female love interests they have no chemistry with, like, tacked on at the end of the season, is a big low point, I would say.
Natalie, she's a death doula.
It's Natalia. See, you don't even know her name.
Natalia.
Because why would
Natalia. you? Oh, I'm sorry. I was supposed to remember her.
Yeah. Natalia, you deserved better than to be the most sad,
she got lost
thankless...
in the transition from Fox to ABC. What can I say? She's still on the Fox lot.
She's literally... somebody call her. She doesn't know how to get home. She's in network TV purgatory. Yes, high points, general consistency. Let's be honest, Buddy-liciousness. Obviously, we'll get into it in more detail, but, like, let's be real. This season was kind of a buddy feast. Like, yeah, they didn't go canon, but I almost don't even fucking care at this point because, like, you know, they could have sex and kiss and stuff, but they're kind of doing everything else. like, whatever. They're raising 2 kids together and they're, like, you know, drinking each other's blood all the time because they keep almost dying on each other. And I think that's, you know, for me, that is a good part of... That is almost enough.
It's almost more intimate than, like, anal penetration.
Yeah, think about
at a certain point. Like,
that.
when you're having, like, this, like, you know, blood oath and, like, loyalty pledge with each other. You know, it's like, you know, I like
it'd be nice if they also had sex after, but, like, I'm pretty satisfied.
Like, yeah, So I would love to see them kiss, and I would love to see the media about that. You know what I mean? And I'd love to live in a world where that was canon. I'm not, like, and this is the thing, I'm not, like, overly attached to the inevitability of it happening in the way that, like, I think I used to be, because I don't know, man. I've been thinking about this. I genuinely wonder how that would change the fandom.
Ryan, I low-key need you to save it for the buddy section.
Oh, you're right.
I'm so sorry. It's like I have so many thoughts and I want to contain... I'm really married to my structure.
We're going to stick with the structure, guys. I will hold that thought, but promise me, Jane, we can circle back to it.
We will circle back, etc., etc. So Buddy-liciousness was a high. I would say Eddie moments. I think Eddie was a high this season. There are a couple notable exceptions, but I think, in my opinion, there were a lot of strong Eddie storylines, Eddie episodes, Eddie scenes. Like, it's not the most movement we've ever gotten. It's not quite a, like, drink the juice thing or whatever. But I think there were just a lot of strong, you know, sometimes... Eddie, the way he's written, obviously, to me, sometimes he can come off like boring or poorly thought out or whatever. And there are times when they write him, in my opinion, as like being a weirdly bad friend to Buck that I don't always like. I feel like there was some of that in season 8 that, like, a lot of buddy shippers don't like to acknowledge because, you know, they'll call it like demonizing Eddie or something, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying sometimes the writing, like, I feel like they're not writing him in a way that I even feel like is that in character for him. This season, I felt like you got a lot of just, like, steady, like, sensitive, strong Eddie in a way that I like.
Steady
and,
Eddie.
Steady Eddie.
Steady Eddie.
And, you know, you've got, like you mentioned, the Dia de los Muertos episode, you get some good... I like that they sort of used his religion for more like a spirituality than like some of this overt God stuff we sometimes get instead. I think there were just a lot of moments, good Eddie moments. I kind of liked the thing with him and that girl they all rescued at the call. I think it was in the Halloween episode, the girl who like seems possessed, but she's just got the abusive parents who are like, you know, religiously abusing her, and then she had like tetanus. And then there's this interesting storyline where, like, Eddie gets caught up in, at first you think they're just doing another, like, tired kind of ableist, like, depiction of a mentally ill woman. But in fact, it's like, no, she was still being abused by her parents. And, you know, not only does it feel significant for Eddie because he has all of this alleged religious trauma and bad relationship with his parents. And it's not like the show quite tied that in the way that they could, but... we as viewers knowing that, I think that made it more meaningful to see Eddie kind of develop this like kind of paternal relationship with that girl and make her life better. And
yeah.
Thought that was cool.
I really agree with that. I was honestly, I was getting choked up at the resolution of that, and I thought it was great for his character. I also appreciated the, like you said, like the spiritual element over the necessarily religious element, and sort of the acknowledgement of that. You know, there was a moment in the finale where Eddie's praying in that sort of non-denominational chapel that they have in hospitals, and the shooter, you know, before he starts shooting people and before he stabs him, penetrates him with the metal phallus. You know, he asks him, you know,
which could mean nothing.
You know, he asks him, like, you know, who are you praying to? He goes, like, you know, I honestly, I don't even know. I'm not even sure. I just want her to be okay.
Likely thing for Eddie to say.
Likely thing for Eddie to say, and I like that that's where his spiritual existence sits, in that he sort of uses it as more of like a cultural and meditative practice, rather than like being this like devout church going, like, oh, I'm going to Bobby's grave and I'm like reciting passages from the Bible to have the Archangel Michael, you know, guide him through the afterlife.
Oh my God,
what
Michael?
have you.
I thought he was in Haiti.
Oh my God, leave him there. we're gonna keep him there.
Well, no, the show has really jumped the shark when they like mend fences with Rockman Dunbar and are like, Michael's back and he's straight again and he's gonna marry Athena again.
You know who was another winner for this season for me? Maddie Buckley. Maddie Buckley was a winner this season for me. I had thought that with her character they may have run out of mobility, but I was wrong. You know, the taking over dispatch storyline, not like hostile takeover, like ascending in the ranks when Sue had her medical emergency stroke situation. I love this new role for her. You know,
I do too, and it does feel like a smart place to take it. I will say that only happening in the last few episodes of the season, I'm not that mad at it, because like how long could they possibly draw that drama out? But if that's kind of her only significant movement of the season, it is a little like, okay, like I feel like she was a little sidelined. One of our listener hot takes was about Maddie feeling like she got sidelined this season, and I hadn't really thought about it that hard before, but I would agree a little bit. Like, yeah, I also like her stepping into Sue's role, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I think it's the nature of a show like this that there will be seasons where like certain characters take a bit of a backseat while other characters have bigger moments. And sometimes it's not fair. Like, let's be real, Buck always gets to be the main character every season because he's the favorite. But, you know, I'm not going to necessarily be mad when like Maddie has a bit of an off season, or like Eddie or someone.
I get that Maddie, you know, kind of got the shaft in like the first half of the season. But listen, she did get that AI to kill herself. And she brought it home in the second half of the season. So, and when you compare that to what she got in season 8, which was getting kidnapped by Gollum, and getting her throat cut, and then they keep forgetting to do the throat/scar makeup on her nowadays.
Yeah, I do prefer it to last season. I mean, last season she had a baby, but they didn't do that much with that. I remember really enjoying actually the episode where Maddie like reveals that she's pregnant again. I remember thinking that was effectively emotional, and I liked actually the episode after she got kidnapped that was dealing with the consequences and her having that like psychosomatic like losing her voice. But I didn't, it's actually very similar to the Buck kidnapping thing in this season. Now we might as well go on to low points, because that was about the end of my high points. I think
No, there were some other high points.
Do you have more?
There were some other high points.
There
were some others. Okay. So like the Harry, you know, becoming a firefighter was
well, we said
great.
that already.
I know, but I thought everything
May
with
Ravi,
the grants
May Ravi,
was great.
that counts as a high point.
Yes.
I like
May Ravi was
I'm
a high
down
point.
with it. At first I was a little weirded out just because like in real life I feel like the actor playing Ravi and the actor playing May, I'm not saying it's like a problematic age gap, like they're both adults. It's more that you know, because May started as like a minor on the show, it does kind of feel like she's significantly younger, but they look about similar in age. And I feel like Ravi is supposed to be younger on the show than his actor is. So I'm kind of over that. Like, I'm trying not to be, you know, I don't feel particularly weirded out by it.
Tim Minear was playing the long game, grooming May's actress, Corinne Messiah, to have an on-screen romance with Ravi.
It's not even that weird, because also I'm pretty sure by the time Ravi was introduced, that actress was like no longer underage, so it's fine. It's not weird. It's just like in a meta sense, you know, that they're actually kind of in two different age groups, and it's a little weird, but like, yeah, again, I'm not really an age gap discourse person. Like, I don't care that much. Within reason, you know, within reason, there are situations where it can be bad, but a lot of the time I'm like, who cares if a 25-year-old dates a 35-year-old? They'll be fine. They'll be fine.
That's true. I
always remember this line that I think Lindsay Ellis had on the episode of musical splaining, when they're talking about Phantom of the Opera, and they're talking about like Christine being aged like 21 or something in the book, and she's like, can you groom a 21-year-old? I don't think you can. It's like there's nuance there. Like, I don't think it's impossible to like take advantage of a 21-year-old as a person who's older, but yeah, it was just kind of a funny way to encapsulate like, oh yeah, maybe this doesn't really apply here.
Well, they're cute. Okay, they're cute, and
they're very cute. That's the point. I like May Ravi. Cross out everything about the age gap discourse. That doesn't matter to me. I think it's cute.
And also, I think May's storyline this season was really well done. I thought, you know, the storyline with her sort of realizing that she didn't want to, you know, go into law, having her whole relationship with Gabby that was very complicated, but then turned out to be for the better, and then going into nursing school, I thought was really well done. It was very mature. And I appreciated sort of the complexity with which they approach the subject, and it felt like May's character had a lot of interiority that was given to her, and so that was definitely a high point for me. I also thought, you know, as much as like the propaganda thing still bothers me with Athena's character, and I wish that they'd gone the PI route with her, the conclusion with her instead. I do appreciate that her making detective will give like a Law and Order-esque spin to the show, with like sort of like a detective kind of storyline rather than a beat cop storyline every episode. And also, we get to see her in cunty streetwear, like sort of like detective clothes all the time.
I wouldn't be surprised if half of the reason that happened was Angela Bassett was like sitting down to contract negotiations for season 9 and was like, all right, if you want me to stay on this show, I don't want to be in the uniform every episode. Yeah. I completely agree. I almost wish that the season had like dwelt a little more on Athena becoming a detective. I'm sure if you go back, maybe there's foreshadowing, but like, I guess I wish they had maybe grappled with that journey for her a little more, because I agree. I think it's a really smart move. I totally agree. Not that detectives aren't still cops, but there is something a little less propaganda feeling about like a detective versus the beat cop. Like the beat cop, you just have a lot more of those calls that are just like, let me arrest and harass this person for being a little annoying or whatever, versus I think the detective stuff will open up the door for some more, kind of like what we saw in this season, like more of these like big conspiracies concerning like rich people, and kind of less of just this boots on the ground, like now I'm gonna handcuff a child or whatever.
Yeah, no, strong Sherlock Holmes energy with like detective storylines, which sort of brings it into like another dimension. So looking forward to Athena Grant with the detective badge. Angela Bassett, PI. Hey, how are you? Not a PI. You're still working with the city, but it's fine. It's better. We'll take what we can get. And also, I just thought the writing overall this season was there were, you know, episodes that were clever, that were consistently funny, that were entertaining, and I thought that, you know, it had a good balance of like humor and also serious drama that felt like worthwhile to get invested in, and also things that genuinely made me cry. I cried more this season than I did, I think, at any point in the last season.
Wow. What were some moments that made you cry?
You know what made me cry genuinely, and I'm almost embarrassed to say given like the tone of the chatter online about this episode, but you know, I was watching the finale, And it was when Theo like comes home to Buck's like at the end of the episode, and Buck tells him, welcome home. And like that, like I
and
just,
he just sort
I
of
was
takes
like,
his hand. Yeah. I mean, we'll get like, I guess we'll discuss Theo in more detail, but like, I think it's cute. Okay.
I think it's cute. It worked for me. It worked for me. Okay.
Yeah. My issues with the Theo thing mostly come down to like the execution of how we got there, but I am not at all mad at Buck adopting
execution,
a cute kid, potentially.
A very pointed word there.
Yes. So may I now go on to low points?
I suppose that is what the people are here to hear, after all.
Right. We are known for our negativity. This past like 30 minutes of recording has felt way too positive, Ryan. I just don't feel like myself. So
let's get dour,
points,
darling. Let's drag some hoes through the mud.
So to be fair, compared to past seasons, my low points are not that bad. But I would say, as I have said before on the air, not only this individual episode, season 9, episode 8, War, following Hen's firing, when we have this conflict between, like, I believe it's like Buck who supports Hen in, you know, being like, Chimney, I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you've done this. And like the kind of Eddie and Chimney side of things being more like measured and like, no, them's the rules. I had to fire you for now. And I think that episode, again, as I've said before, is uniquely weak. That was the point. I remember catching up on those episodes and getting to that one and just being like in disbelief at how bad it was.
Yeah.
I haven't rewatched any of the season yet, so like maybe, you know, maybe I'm kind of over exaggerating it in my mind, but my impression at the time was that it felt, for one thing, really out of character, like just this extremely immature moment from Hen. And I've talked about before, I think sometimes Hen's problem can be, right, like being too kind of stubborn and bullish and having this idea that she's right all the time. But this episode was so unself-aware. It really read to me at the time as almost like this extremely personal, like almost like somebody's like self-insert story about Hen being like the victim of the universe. I remember being particularly upset at the scene where Hen like gets really mad at all her friends and for the crime of like not knowing that something was going on with her when she didn't tell them. Like, she's like, nobody ever checked in with me, Hen, and meanwhile I've been doing all these things for you. And I feel like maybe it got to me because I feel like I've encountered that type of person before, where it's like, well, I do all these things for you that you didn't ask me to do, and you haven't reciprocated because I haven't like reached out and asked for that help that, again, I offer to you unprompted. And, you know, so how dare you not like return my transactional. And to me, I feel like that's a sort of manipulative thing to do, to be like, you know, weaponizing that against people. It was, and it's also just so tone deaf, I think, given that all these other characters, you know, Bobby died and that affected all of them, and especially some of them, you know, like Athena, like that's her husband who died. And like, I get that, you know, like Bobby was very important to you too, but like, you know, sorry she didn't check in on you, Hen. Like, she kind of had her own shit going on. Everybody did. And it just feels, and again, it feels like the episode is very much vindicating this perspective from Hen of like, yeah, you guys are all so shitty for not checking in with little old Hen. And it's like, I get that we've gotten this thing before in the show, like in season 8, there's that time everybody forgot her birthday, right? So it's like, fair enough, we've seen sometimes people neglecting Hen.
But that was
friend.
Also out of character. That was
that also felt like it just came
field.
Out of nowhere and was just this random way to like give Hen drama. Doesn't really feel in line.
So it felt so unjustified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so I just thought that was so bizarre. It felt like, again, it felt like weirdly personal. Like somebody was trying to like get their emotions. Maybe somebody on the writing staff like felt this way about their own friends and just wrote this like really self-righteous little manifesto. And
if you can't psychoanalyze the writers of 911, who can you psychoanalyze?
Like, come on. I fear that somebody in there was like really getting their emotions out writing that scene. And I think it's so lame the way then the episode has all the characters be like, oh my God, Hen, you're so right. We're so sorry. It's like, you don't have to be sorry. You didn't do anything. Like, she should have told you something was going on if she wanted your help. I'm sorry. I'm not saying your friends should never check in with you, but like it was really not shown to us that they were neglecting her in any real way. And leading off of that, I just want to say I kind of think that entire storyline with Hen was weak. I think it was just not really. It just didn't really hit that hard, you know? It never felt like the stakes were that high. It was kind of, I get that they were trying to lead up to this medical mystery, but I feel like it almost made it like more dull that we weren't getting a lot of details, and like we're just like, oh, this mysterious health problem's going on with Hen. And I don't mean to dismiss it, because I know that there are a lot of like chronic illnesses and chronic pain issues that are really hard to diagnose, and people do have like vague but really debilitating symptoms but there's something about the execution here that just like was not gripping, did not really make you feel like, again, the stakes were high or that you really needed to know more.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I was going to say that, like, that same thing, that like the entire storyline should have been tossed out in the developmental stages, because it makes absolutely no sense within like the world of these established characters. And I'm not saying that like it's wrong to do this kind of storyline with a disease that manifests later in life, but to wrap it up in the same way as Chimney's rebar through the skull is crazy to me.
If the idea was to sort of represent one of these like mysterious chronic illnesses that is hard to get diagnosed, especially if you're like a woman or a woman of color, I feel like then just having it be wrapped up like, well, this is exactly what you have. And, you know, I get that they depict it as like, okay, it's not going to be a straightforward recovery, and there's going to be a lot of, and we see Hen really struggling with that. But even so, just, I don't know, something about it got lost in the execution.
It still felt like a pretty straightforward recovery, because by the end of the season, she's just kind of doing regular Hen shit like she was before.
Yeah,
it's like as if she had never had the disease in the first place, so they weren't willing to actually live with the consequences of the decision they made in the writing stage.
They didn't seem willing to commit to the idea of a character having a chronic, like, immune illness like that. And
to be honest, like, it felt like a consequence of the fact that they completely wrote themselves out of the most logical storyline that they could have had for Hen this season, which is to make Hen the captain of the 118. You know, that was the biggest like miss for me right off the bat, was making Chim captain. Not because I'm anti-Chim, but there's something strange going on with this franchise. There is something strange going on with this franchise, which is that they are absolutely allergic to having women in the driver's seat. They're absolutely allergic to having women at like the helm of their fire stations, and they always defer to a man. You know, and for a bulk of these men, a white man, a straight white man. And the only way that a man of color can get the job is if the straight white man who's in charge for 8 years dies of super virus.
Yeah, if we fucking kill him off with hemorrhagic fever. Yeah, it is, well, okay, I must say, with my season 9 that I discussed on the Patreon, I did give them the perfect solution for this season, which is to have the drama with Hen and Chimney this season be that Hen actually did want to be captain, and they spend the whole season, like, feuding about it. Like, you know, give me some conflict or something. But no, Hen just has to go on this weird wild goose. I think maybe also part of the problem with the execution of the Hen illness is that it is so just Hen doing her own thing on the side of the narrative, and obviously that becomes part of it when Hen's like, why didn't you, I did this all by myself and I decided not to tell you, and now I'm mad that I didn't tell you. Like, they could have, you know, it didn't feel like it was that affected by the other characters, or that it was really affecting the other characters, so it felt a little less engaging for that reason as well.
I just thought that entire storyline was unjustified and could have been circumvented if they had just, you know, done what they should have done in season 8, which was, you know, put Hen in charge, or like you said in your season 9, had a power struggle between her and Chim, that which would have created a compelling storyline for both of them. Because to be honest, a loser for me this season was also Chimney as
just not a lot going on. Not a lot going on.
And honestly, a pretty uncompelling presence as, like, you know, the captain. Like, I think Aisha Hines really would have sold it a lot better and would have done more interesting things with it.
There is something about Chimney's character in these later seasons where, like, you know, he's developed too much to be kind of like the funny side member of the 118, but he's not quite at that, like, Bobby or even Hen level of, like, level-headed, like, parental leadership yet. So he does just kind of feel like this guy some of the time.
He's just a guy. He's just a guy.
And I feel like if what you said, like if Hen had been the captain from the beginning, then Hen could have had those more like, oh, how do I grapple with being the leader type moments. And maybe that would have opened up Chimney to have more storylines like with Maddie, with parenthood, with something that maybe would have worked a little better for that character.
Yeah, but they didn't do that. And I have to, now that I'm mapping it out in my brain, I wonder if having like a man at like the spearheading the 118 even subconsciously is like the writer's way of balancing things, because Athena's a sergeant and because dispatch has always had a woman in charge, whether it's Sue or Maddie. And it was very pointed as having Maddie be like in charge of dispatch instead of Josh.
Yeah. Okay. Win for feminism. Josh deserved to lose that job.
I think it would have been a total slay if all three of the main factions of this show had women in charge. All I'm saying.
Right. Like, you're a coward, Tim Minear. Just give in to the feminist utopia.
He is a coward, and that's why he's not going to subscribe to our Patreon.
Yeah, that's why he likes the buddy system and not us. Sorry, Timmy. Sorry,
Timmy.
You're not gonna. You're not. This isn't a safe space for you.
He's gonna come on our show and hear his name get cursed out.
Oh well. Yeah.
Well, okay, but that's so. Yeah. So we have Hen and Chim in like the losers bracket on this season, unfortunately, and it is unfortunate because I think they both have good moments this season. I think the strongest Chimney episode is in episode 16 when they're doing like the storyline where basically the 118 is getting audited. You know?
I liked that episode a lot. I thought that episode was such a slay. I kind of love. So good. I love when a sort of procedural style show does sort of a special format for an episode. I think, honestly, Ocean's 911 is a great example when they did the sort of heist and interrogation format.
Yeah.
And this is one, it reminds me of those very special episodes.
I'm so confused. Can you start over?
I like, it reminds me of when Grey's Anatomy occasionally does like a lawsuit or like somebody's medical license is up for review episode.
Oh my God. The fucking, one of the best episodes of that show when they're like trying to decipher what went wrong with that woman dying in like the smoke inhalation thing. You know, and they're doing the interviews and everyone's fighting in the halls because the two hospitals had to merge. And then Dr. Kepner gets fired in the end. That episode is so fucking good.
Or even the one that always comes to mind for me is that one where Callie is on trial for medical malpractice because she like a guy went in for like a routine surgery or something and he like lost his fucking legs because of, you know, there were so many complications. Where There's Smoke, yes, that was a great episode. And then the like gut punch at the end, this crazy twist that it's like a human trafficking thing and like an exploiting immigrants thing leading into 9-1 woke doing an anti-ICE storyline. Come on. Come on. These last few episodes. 8. I loved it.
It's the wokest show on TV.
I guess, I should have mentioned that. I should have mentioned that in high points. I think, you know, I'm not trying to reward the bare minimum or anything, but in this day and age, on network TV, where the target demographics are older people who could be expected to be more conservative. Grey's Anatomy has always been like the woke show. Like when Roe v. Wade got overturned, they did this insane storyline where like Addison is driving around the country in this like abortion mobile. I don't think that's what she calls it. but she's like driving around the country to provide reproductive health care to women who have been like disenfranchised in that way. And you know, they've
abortion
always
mobile.
You can quote me on that. And they've always been like really kind of questioning of cops on Grey's Anatomy. That is like the woke ABC show. And so I like, you know, when 911 moved to ABC, I did wonder, like, not just from a buddy perspective, but in general, like, are we going to see a little more of that? Like, ABC does tend to be like a trendier, younger, sort of woker, more woman-oriented network, I would say, compared to,
How to Get Away with Murder aired on it.
Yes, it's been the Shondaland.
Like the Shondaland home before Netflix.
Network, famously, versus like CBS, which now CBS has had a very like public, overt, conservative takeover. But even before that, CBS had the oldest viewer demographics, and you could really see reflected in their content that they made more.
Yeah, they aired 2.5 Men.
Yeah, you know, they aired like Tracker. no offense to Tracker, but it's like they were airing those shows about like men having guns in the woods, you know?
Yeah.
So, and obviously Fox is Fox. And so it's nice to see that they actually are engaging with social issues again and not just
Fox
doing
is
like
such
propaganda.
A mixed bag too.
Fox
is
the network,
such a mixed
like,
bag because they aired Glee, and like Family Guy has always been like dark woke in like a really like weird
to be clear,
societal way.
Fox, the general network, is not like Fox News, but it's just you worry about because of the whole company.
Fox
you
News
worry about how that will trickle down. But yeah, they're a bit of a wild card, I guess.
No, they're the wild card. CBS is like the true conservative hostile takeover, and ABC, yeah, the one owned by Disney, weirdly enough, is the last bastion of woke network television.
Yeah,
I guess NBC's up in the air.
I think we really have to credit Shonda Rhimes, honestly, for like paving the way for ABC to be this like woman-oriented, very diverse. Like Shonda Rhimes shows were so influential in the way they would like diversify their casts, and you've seen that not only carried out throughout all of Shonda's work, all of her projects, but then through these shows that are not affiliated with her but perhaps air on the same network, or even ones that air on different networks, that kind of became the industry standard for like shows like that. And I just love Shonda Rhimes, and I just like I'm not endorsing everything she's ever done, but like watching Grey's Anatomy and rewatching How to Get Away with Murder, I'm like, literally no one was doing it like her in terms of like just going for the wokeness and being like, we are not going to be shy about being progressive.
Yeah. Like, I know that we shit on him like when it's deserved, but I do want to say that Ryan Murphy, like the good that he's done, owes everything to Shonda. You know what I mean? Everything to Shonda Rhimes. There's no world that like his level of diversity, which is lower than hers, or his level of like representation or interesting storyline, which again is lower than hers, exists at all without her. So I totally agree with you.
You need sort of the Shonda to temper Ryan Murphy's more edgelord tendencies, and when they influence each other, you can get some really interesting
ABC
TV.
And Ryan aired on Fox, because Ryan was also the wild card guy, so he aired on the wild card network.
Yeah, no, literally.
Yeah.
So what were we talking about?
The bad parts of the season. No, the diversity was going in the good.
So, you know,
so
little aside
was
that
going
we
in the good.
appreciated that they, you know, kind of brought up politics and made a stand again, because it feels like it's been a while since we've seen them do that. But yes, bad parts, I would say my second biggest like thing I did not like this season. It is just one individual thing in an episode, but you know, back to Theo, Connor and Cameron, the sperm donor parents returning. Not only was I just not happy about that in the first place, I think that's a real hacky move, but then the entire execution, again, pun intended, execution of them coming back, the way they acted, and then the way they immediately
hate our
died.
shitty child. We hate our shitty child so much.
I was shocked. I was kind of shocked by this storyline, because Connor and Cameron come back. Well, first, you know, Buck meets this kid on a call, and it reminds him so much of himself, and he's such a, you know, fun, like, energetic kid. And then he finds out it's Connor and Cameron's sperm donor kid, so biologically Buck's child. And Connor and Cameron, like, come over for dinner, and they're basically like, Buck, we fucking hate our child and our lives. This has ruined our lives. Fuck you. I know we came to you asking you to be, begging you to be our sperm donor, but fuck you. This sucks, and this is your fault. And also, this child is your child and your responsibility. They don't say exactly that, but it's like, first of all,
an implication in the air.
It's incredibly ableist, I would say. Like, people like to get on that Shannon thing for being ableist, and like, I'm not saying it's necessarily not. I just think there's like a little more room for nuance there of like having empathy for what what that might have actually meant her character was trying to express, versus this is just like these parents being like, yeah, having this child who clearly has like, I don't know, maybe ADHD or something else going on has made our lives so difficult, and we're exhausted, and we blame you, biological father, because clearly you have some sort of, you know, developmental thing going on that made you crazy and evil, just like our little boy. I found it shocking.
Do you remember that episode of iCarly where they have that fan that comes on the show?
Yeah,
named Mandy. And the entire episode is just, you know, this autistic child, Quentin Review said it in his video, this autistic child fucking sucks. And that's the entire point of the episode.
Yeah.
It felt like that a little bit with like how Theo's character was introduced, where like the parents were like, so this ADHD child that you gave us fucking sucks.
It's just
and we
so
hate
infuriating.
You for it.
It's so infuriating because we've all seen season 6. It's like you guys came to Buck and begged him to do this unorthodox arrangement. Begged him
they
to
basically
do this,
milked the sperm out of his like out of his little
dick.
Buckley himself.
They begged him to do this unorthodox arrangement where they chose a guy they knew instead of a sperm bank. And I don't know that much about the sperm bank, but I think that one of the things involved in like seeking out a sperm donor through that official channel is that you can sort of choose and hear a lot about the background of who you're looking at versus Buck.
Yeah, you can shop for sperm,
which is like, there's some ethical questions there. But, it sounds like with Buck, they either didn't do much background research or didn't do enough, because it's like, Connor knows Buck from way back when. He should have known that he was like a kind of kooky and crazy guy. And also like, again, incredibly just like blatantly ableist to be like, can we talk to your mom? Do you have a diagnosis? What's your problem that you may have passed on to our problem child? And then, and to be clear, I'm not necessarily mad at the show depicting this. My problem is that the show does not confront it at all. The show just kills them off so that we don't have to deal with that. So that we don't have to unpack that. And I find that really cowardly.
It's the cheap, lazy way out. Yeah, no, I totally
and just
agree.
Really
it's very
weird
cowardly
that they would make them like that in the first place. They were so like, and then, Buck is hurt by that. So it's like the show is aware that was hurtful, but it doesn't confront the fact that was like really awful of them to do, and that they kind of seemed like awful parents. Because also, like,
you could give like a hand to the idea that they're specifically depicting that to justify Buck taking in this kid because they're presenting a mismatch between the child and the adults in the situation to make it look like Buck is actually the preferred parent in the situation. But when you do that, when you say that, what you're doing is you're giving the writers a lot of leeway, and it completely absolves the responsibility to this story that you're telling, right?
Well, and also, if that was what it was supposed to be, then why kill off the parents? Like, I feel like if your plan is to kill off the parents, you don't need to make them seem like bad parents, because they will just be gone, and Theo will need a new parent. Versus, like, it almost feels like it feels weird on a lot of levels. It feels like you could interpret it as the car accident being like this righteous punishment from God, like, fuck you for being ableist to
drops
your
a
ADHD.
lightning bolt and just fucking like, it just unhooks that boat and causes the collision on that one car in particular. I mean, listen, he literally works at a firehouse, and what is the like proverbial like storytelling abandoning a child, then dropping him off at the fire station?
That's the thing, is the show was depicting Connor and Cameron as being so awful and like so resentful of their own child that I really thought the episode was going to be like, they just like leave Theo at his house and leave, and they don't come back or something. I thought it was gonna be like full-on character assassination, like, yep, these are villains now, they're abandoning the kid. And I honestly might have preferred that, because although
it would have taken so much balls, all
the balls
that would taken,
it would have been hilarious. And also it would have been like, as much as it would have been kind of cartoonish and like over the top, it at least would have been a more like coherent, kind of internally logical thing to have happen, because you would see like, oh yeah, they were bad parents for saying all that stuff, and like they did dislike their kid, versus just having them die and like never unpack what was said is just like, oh, like, does the show approve of those sentiments, or like what was going on?
And in like a meta sense, in like a meta sense, like everybody hates the sperm donor arc. You know what I mean? But what great like way to mend fences than to be like, You know, so I knew that
guys.
like we did this horrible thing, but actually fuck these guys, they're the worst, and you are right to hate this storyline. But guess what? You're gonna get something great out of it because Buck has an ADHD child who's just like him.
That is honestly a great point, Ryan. I'm sorry. It would have been kind of perfect. Like, again, really over the top and cartoony, but kind of, and mean, you know, but kind of perfect if they were just like, yeah, and then after Connor and Cameron abandoned the kid, there could be some unpacking on Buck's part of like, yeah, I guess it was like pretty inappropriate of them to even ask me that, and like the way they decided to like not really have boundaries there, that was bad too. And then clearly they were like ill-equipped to actually have a child, and all these things. He could like relate it to his own experiences with his bad parents. I'm just, yeah, Connor and Cameron deadbeat parents arc. It should have happened.
This is a Ryan Murphy show. Okay, I get that he's not involved in the production.
A lot of asterisks.
It's a Tim Minear show. Sure. But it's in the Murphyverse. Like,
right. Why not do something a little nasty?
The thing that I always clamor for, that I really love when we get, is when the show has like a biting edge to it. You know, because the show is good at it. When it actually like takes the leap to do something like that, I enjoy myself. You know what I mean? Even if it's something as simple as having Angela Bassett look into the camera and say, "Kill yourself, bitch." Like, it's good. It's good TV. You know, so like I understand that it's not like, you know, we're not watching American Horror Story or Feud or Pose or whatever, but like at the same time, like if you're in the Murphyverse, you kind of have license to do something mean and like biting at least once per season.
And
you know,
come on, the fans would have loved it. Fans love having a good hateable character, and they already hated the sperm donor thing. So yeah, if you
they
told
have to
them...
invent a hateable character whenever they don't have one, and they always choose a woman. So at least this would have been like balance between a man and a woman. You know,
right.
For some reason.
And it could have been like, remember this storyline you hated? Yeah, now they are literally like your dog chew toys that you get to just like stew about for the rest of your lives and dunk on and be like, you now Buck's gonna be a way better parent than you ever were. Now the way they've framed it, it's like we're all gonna look back at Connor and Cameron as like these bad parents, but also they'll be dead, so it's like not only can we not really do anything about it, but it's gonna feel kind of weird to be like, yeah, fuck them, I'm glad they're dead. You know. And
they're fictional, we can say that.
And if the parents had been left alive, but just abandoning the kid, then you're leaving the door open if like for more drama. If they ever come back, what if they ever decide that, you know, they're fickle people, what if they ever come back and decide, oh, we do want Theo now that he's a little older, and then there's like a legal battle. You know, there are all sorts of interesting things.
There's so many things you could do with this, especially if you're playing the long game and planning this show, like what the next 10 years of it could look like if you keep getting renewed,
doesn't do that.
I know these writers aren't doing that, but they should. They should if they want to have a sustainable thing here.
Yeah.
You know, God forbid we're still doing this in 10 years.
But I feel don't even joke, lad. I think we're already here. We should. I know that I'm very married to my agenda here, but I think let's switch around Buddie and Theo. Let's just talk about Theo now that we're already on the topic.
Let's do it. Let's do
it.
So
yes, other than the execution, I think I like the idea of Buck getting a kid, and leading up to it, when all these things got leaked about Buck potentially having this child come into his life, a lot of people were speculating that it would be the sperm donor baby, and I was like, that would be the stupidest thing ever. Like, please let it be just some unrelated kid that Buck sees himself in. But no, of course, we can only be right about theories when they're like crack theories, because I guess that's just how Tim Minear's brain works. So, you know, Tommy did date Abby, and Theo is the sperm donor baby. So I don't love that that's how it started. And like we just explained, I do not love what they did with the parents. But ultimately, I'm very into the idea of Buck having a cute kid. I do not agree with the critics who are like, this somehow devalues or insults his relationship with Christopher. I think that's, you know, if we see that happen on the show, I will decry it, but like we have no reason to believe that will happen yet. So, you know, why worry? I think both can exist. I mean,
they're basically just becoming a blended family.
Yeah. I think maybe some people's argument was like, oh, now Buck having this child in a new way sort of like implies that Christopher was never really his child, like we have kind of come to assume as the fandom. I really don't think that. You know that tweet. You know that tweet that's like, yeah, I guess you could interpret it that way if you wanted a made up thing to be mad about.
Right. I'm saying, like, do you understand how tying this into Buddie it is? If Buck gets another dog, they will literally have a nuclear family.
Yeah.
They will literally have a nuclear family. It'll be 2 parents, 2 kids, and a dog. It's
very
suburbia.
Clear, I think that, Eddie and Christopher will be part of this. And, I don't think it's weird. Obviously the show has not acknowledged, like, Christopher being Buck's child, but it's kind of true in the story, right? We've seen them co-parent. And so I think it makes sense that Buck doesn't currently explicitly consider himself like Christopher's father or his other parent. But, that's normal. Like, the show hasn't said that yet. And, also Buck has not confronted a lot of things about his and Eddie's relationship. And so I think it's like, I'm not discouraged by the fact that they didn't also have him suddenly say, well, I do already have one child, but I guess I'll have another one. It's like, yeah, he's not really there yet, but that doesn't make his relationship with Christopher any less real.
Yeah. I mean, like, especially because Christopher is getting older. Like, he's, in a few years, he's going to go to college, presumably. And he might go to college,
what if he goes to a trade
fair
school?
ways away. What if he goes to a trade school? What if he, goes to beauty school? What if he gets an apprenticeship? I don't know. I don't know what his future looks like. What if he gets his associates? What if he gets
Esthetician
his
Christopher?
What if he gets his BFA? What if he's like really into like musical theater? Either way, Christopher is getting older, and like Buddie needs a scrappy little dude to, take care of. And
Famously.
I think that it would be a very interesting role reversal, especially for Eddie's character, if Eddie took on the Buck role in Buck and Theo's little household.
Right.
So I'm all for this. I'm excited to see where it goes. Again, like, obviously, we play it by ear with this show, but I'm interested. I'm intrigued. So I'm not opposed to that at all. And I thought that the scene, like I said, where Theo was dropped off at Buck's house was very affecting, and I appreciate that, like, Buck has little Buck now, you know?
Even just the
He's
actor,
got little Buck.
Just like Ji-yeon, the kid is played by a set of twins, I'm pretty sure. And I saw some people online saying, like, in that scene, they were like, I could immediately tell it was the other twin. And I kind of agree. I think he's like a little taller, like you can just tell. But also something about kid.
I do not spend a lot of time looking at children.
Nor
sorry.
do I. Okay, don't. That's not what I said. But it's more that
pedo-jacketing Jane on air is crazy.
Okay. There was something about what I was trying to say is I think it's really cute in the scene. The kid has like his little hands in his little pockets, and there's just something very like, I don't know. He's got this very like cool, calm, and collected little manner to him, and I thought it was really cute for that particular scene.
Little Kevin James. Little Kevin James
for that particular scene when they just sort of are like, yeah, I'm living with you now. I think it's, I guess I just wanted to share that I thought it was a cute detail that the kid had his hands in his pockets, and it felt like kind of different than the energy the kid had in the other episode or whatever. But I'm very, I think this could be a lot of things, and I've never been someone who's super, I'm just not feeling that extreme on either end. I think I tweeted when the storyline first got leaked and everybody was going crazy, like everybody's like fighting and dooming about something I don't really care about. Like, I feel so neutral about the idea of Buck getting a kid. Like, it could go either way. I've never been someone who is that moved by like the idea of like, some people are into like Buddie becoming girl dads or something. I'm like, why do I don't care. They already like, whenever that would come up, I kind of would get that thing of like, well, they already do have a child, so why are we like making up fictional children that they don't have? It's a little different when they actually introduce someone on the show. And I don't know. I've never, what I'm trying to say is I've never been that crazy about like kid fix or whatever, where it's like, oh, they're going to have children. Like, maybe it's because I personally am not that invested in having children, that I just don't find that like romantic or interesting. But like, we know, I think on the so that's why when it was like starting to be leaked that would happen, I wasn't immediately dooming about it. And I also wasn't immediately like, yes, this is my favorite thing. But I just don't know why people have to be so emotional about things before they have any idea what is even happening, Like, for me, I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll see how it happens on the show. And, my takeaway has been, didn't like what they did with the parents, but I am okay with the outcome, and I think it'll be cute.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's almost like the reverse of like the Bobby thing from last season. I understand, the emotional impulse to get upset about something when it seems like your expectations aren't going to be met. But I think the appropriate course of action from there is to re-examine your own expectations and your habit of forming expectations and perhaps adjust. Just because when you're setting yourself up for failure, you're setting yourself up to not enjoy media when you have high expectations of something that are, I say this with love, niche and specific. And then it doesn't turn out like you want it to. Obviously, you're going to express disappointment and possibly anger, and you're going to voice that publicly. And I think that that's a shame, because you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot when you do that. I think it's much healthier to go in with an open mind and to give something a chance. So I totally agree with you on that. And I think I don't want to speak too strongly on this, because I don't want to say anything uncouth, because I think that's unkind. And I'm trying to be kind. Guys, I'm like Wendy Williams. Today's National Kindness Day. I'm going to try to be kind. But at the same time, I just think that with a show like this, where like storylines play out in terms of months, if not years, and satisfying conclusions can be hard to find. And the kind of storyline you're looking for has been built up for years. I think a kind of rage and shame spiral is almost inevitable when things don't go exactly according to your plans. It's not like the writer has specific jobs to tell a compelling story that is narratively satisfying, makes sense internally within the world that they've created, and also to keep the door open for future stories. But the writer's job is not necessarily to placate or to cater to the specific tastes or interests of a person or a group of people. And if that is upsetting, sorry, man, that's life. Don't know what to say.
I really don't want to sound hypocritical about any of the things that we talk about here, because it's not like we, obviously we criticize this show all the time, already have quite a bit in this episode.
Yeah.
But yes, there is a difference between like getting on the show for what you perceive as bad writing or it's whatever, but then also being more upset that, the show didn't go along to your extremely specific expectations. Or, we talked a little about when Bobby died, people having this expectation that the show needs to function as their comfort show, when like that is just very blatantly like not how a TV show operates. And it's, it's fine for a show to be your comfort show, but you can't really place that responsibility on the creator of it. This is such a perfect segue into our Buddie section. But Ryan, you and I observed, we had an interesting experience watching the finale, or at least I did, because I watched it live. You did not. I had this experience where I watched the episode. I had seen like the stills, and there were some interesting Eddie stills, so I was kind of excited about that. But I think I know better than to go into any episode of 911 with particularly high or like Buddie-licious expectations. So I kind of just went in like we were saying, with an open mind, and I thought it was a pretty good episode. I agree with people that the Eddie getting stabbed thing was pretty unmotivated. I think there have been a lot of instances like that in the last 2 seasons of just like Tim Minear is like, let me just like fuck somebody up for no reason and then not really have it lead to anything. But other than, and I enjoyed the stabbing happening. It was just, sure, a little disappointing that it didn't really, it just like happened and then they found him and he was fine, and I don't know.
Yeah. So my issues with the finale are structural, in the sense that like I really enjoyed everything with the active shooting scenario. I really enjoyed a lot of the emotional character beats. I thought that it wrapped up in a cohesive way that felt pretty logical for the storylines that they had set up over the season. I think that some scenes should have been reshuffled a bit, and some things could have been paced out a little bit longer, especially like the confrontation in the halls with Harry and the shooter.
I saw a lot of people saying that it would have been a good two-parter, and I would agree with that. I think that would have given them a lot more room.
I don't know. I'm on the fence about that. No, I'm on the fence about that because I don't know. This is just my own hang up with it, I guess. But I don't know if I want to necessarily live in like the active shooter lockdown scenario for 2 episodes, or to end it on a cliffhanger and then have a whole episode in that. I thought that the amount of time that we spent in it was pretty appropriate and that they made good use of it. I just think that certain things could have been reshuffled in order to give more of a sense of weight and to allow more things to breathe. I'm
not saying
like
that like the
Eddie
active shooter
thing.
part had to be a two-parter necessarily,
but that's the most interesting part about it, you know?
I guess just that somehow, like you said, with some of this reshuffling, maybe there could have been time to like both set up and pay off certain things more. Like, if you're gonna do, for example, this Eddie stabbing thing, I don't know, maybe that could have been like the cliffhanger of a part 1 episode, and then we sort of enter active shooter situation in a part 2. That would have been good. Right? Like just having some things start in the first episode so that there can be a little more breathing room there.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing that I liked about the Eddie stabbing thing is that I loved how isolated each individual member or each individual pair in the 118 was. Everyone in the cast had their own little group that they were isolated within, and so because of that they all had something to do. I thought that it gave a stronger sense of urgency to the episode, and it provided kind of a unique structure that I think that they could take advantage of more, given that it's an ensemble show that deals with emergency scenarios. I do agree that the Eddie thing deserved more of a dramatic payoff. I don't like that the elevator just arrived and he was there bloody.
He's like,
and
I'm
then
fine,
they're
guys.
like, get another gurney while the big healing song is playing, and then we flash forward to like, I don't know, the next day, and he's
in
fine
the hospital,
and he's
like,
chilling.
oh, hospital food, am I right? What might have been better...
Get a load of this crap!
What might have been better is if we see him, like, isolated, bleeding out for the whole episode, and then he's not okay when they find him, and it's like he's dying, and maybe that could at least provide more drama than we got, because it just feels like kind of a, you know, like the SpongeBob thing of like going down a roller coaster, but it's like a foot tall.
They had 10 minutes left of the episode. They had 10 minutes left of the episode, and like the shooter thing was kind of wrapped up a little quicker than I would have liked, and the healing song was playing, so I thought it was going to be like a fake out, like a bait and switch, and then Eddie's crashing.
A lot of people were saying
really
like in the promo there's
minutes.
like audio of somebody flatlining, and people were like, what if that's not Athena, what if that's Eddie?
I would have loved that if that was Eddie, and that was like, and maybe they could even end the season on a cliffhanger, because it already got renewed for season 10.
It would have torn the fandom apart, but imagine if they ended on an Eddie flatline cliffhanger. Come on. That would have been Buddylicious in my opinion. We would have had the most Buddylicious hiatus. It would have been angsty, but it would have been Buddylicious. So to tie it back to Buddy,
love the heavy
what I'm trying to say is that I watched the finale and I was like, okay, that was pretty good. Like, you know, the Eddie thing, I wish it had paid off more, but like it was an enjoyable episode, good drama, much more gripping than like last season's finale, for example.
Agreed.
And we do have one big status quo shift, which is that Buck is officially like taking in this child, at least fostering him, it seems like. And then I went on Twitter, and you guys, I really am trying to talk less about our Twitter drama on the show, because I'm realizing that it is probably really boring for you, and it does kind of make us sound like losers. But I just feel like it's relevant in this one situation, because I just did like rattled off just like mostly a joke to me, being like, oh well, Buddy can in season 10. We did the same thing at the end of season 8, right? Despite not really liking the end of season 8. And suddenly I'm getting these quote tweets like
unhinged,
like, fuck you, you should kill yourself. Just people being like, are you insane? Like, you guys are so stupid. What is wrong with you? And it's like, it's one thing for I would have totally understood if people were like, really? Like, come on, it's been 9 seasons. But no, it was like people genuinely being so angry and upset, and I was so confused.
Hurt.
Because for me, this is like one of the least controversial like endings to a season we've ever had.
I don't know how to explain it. I was bewildered. I was buck bothered and bewildered when I was reading those quote tweets because, especially because of like, I guess the conviction with which they typed at you. I like about how betrayed they felt, about how hurt they were, that there was this all or nothing mentality with this season that I didn't even know was going on. I didn't know people were feeling
I didn't know that was
way
happening,
about this
to
season
quote
at
Cynthia
all.
Erivo. And to clarify, I'm not just trying to be like, we had some people in our Twitter mentions who were having a wacky time. This is how I'm saying this, because this is how I realized that apparently there is this whole side of the fandom that apparently we're resting
melting down.
Yeah, apparently we're resting like seemingly their entire like stock in the entire show on this season finale. And when, I don't know, like Buddie didn't go canon in the last episode and Eddie didn't immediately turn to the camera and say, I'm gay, they like decided that was like, that the show was over. And it's so tough because, so basically what I wrote in my notes is, Buddie, are we dooming? Because it seems like a lot of people are. I have so many thoughts. I find the whole thing of dooming for a ship kind of bizarre in the first place. And like, don't get me wrong, I guess I was doing what you would call dooming last season when I made my like Blazing Saddles, queer baiting breakdown video.
Great video.
Thank you. Always be plugging. I feel, and I've told this to some people before, I feel like maybe I went on this journey last season where I was a little too emotionally invested and I got really upset with sort of getting the rug pulled out from under us and feeling like nothing was ever going to happen. And I kind of had my like grief over that at the time, and then got a little distracted because Bobby Nash died of horrible illness. And
super virus.
I feel like I kind of got over it. I feel like I kind of worked through it and decided to just have a little more distance from the show. I sort of had my grieving period, and then I kind of reached the acceptance phase. And I feel like apparently there are a lot of people who are kind of having that moment now of being like, wow, I am really tired of being jerked around by this show. And so in a way I can completely empathize with that. And in another way, I can speak from firsthand experience and be like, you guys, it's not that serious. And like, if you are feeling this bad about it, it's probably time to step away from the show. Because, it's people whose entire accounts are dedicated to just like, now just like hating on the show and talking about how terrible it's become and how all the people behind it have turned on them. And there's like this weird contingency. I've found a lot of them have this weird conspiracy theory that like Oliver Stark is the one blocking the road to Buddie, which like, who knows?
What?
Right. Like, who knows what's going on with that? Who knows if Ryan Guzman has ever been opposed, if Tim Minear has ever been opposed, like what exactly is keeping them from doing it? I kind of doubt it's Oliver Stark. And even if it is,
I do too.
I don't know. I don't really get it. It just seems like they want somebody to blame, And
yeah, it just feels like speculations on personal lives because like you don't know where else to look.
Yeah, and again, I don't mean to sound hypocritical because I know that like we have complained so much about this show, and I know that I was kind of having my crash out about Buddie queerbaiting last season, but I feel like, we complain about the show a lot, but we still do watch it because there are still things we get out of it or hope to get out of it. We still do like these characters and want to see like the fun emergencies and stuff. I feel like if you truly... like, if Buddie is the only thing, if specifically Buddie being concretely canon is the only thing that's important to you, to the extent that now that it hasn't gone concretely canon this season, you, like, are crashing out and hate the show, it's like, why watch it then? Like, you can stop. You can just stop.
Well, they're in too deep at this point. And I understand that. I understand the sunk cost fallacy of you're in so deep with the show and you get so invested in it that... turning back feels foolish and shameful. But at the same time, like I have multiple things to say about this. First of all, I do feel like our crash out about this thing last year was a bit more justified in the sense that they were queer baiting way harder last year, especially with the promotion, with Ryan and Oliver.
To me, it's like, I think you could argue this season is sort of baiting in the same way as like, we've gotten a lot of Buddie stuff. They've been at these conventions, like talking about Buddie, whatever. But I do think like the narratives in this season have been very different because, like we talked about at the beginning of this episode, season 8 felt like it was going in this kind of solid direct. It felt like there was a real trajectory happening, and then that came to a complete halt. And so that's why I really crashed out. Is I really felt like, and specifically, I was upset with the episode "Holy Mother of God" or whatever, where a lot of people liked that episode because it was so buddylicious. But what I took issue with was this idea that it kind of seemed like the show had finally acknowledged Buddie and then had just kind of been like, oh well, and then like moved on and like not really. And versus this season, we have not had so much of like an explicit acknowledgement of the idea of Buddie, except, very interestingly, except when Buck and Eddie go to New Mexico and everybody is homophobic to them the whole time because they think they're a gay couple. And that's like explicit in the text. No,
which is awesome.
That's like one of the best Buddie developments we've gotten in years.
Yes.
But other than that, this season doesn't really engage with the idea of Buddie explicitly. Instead, it just gave us a lot of straight up like Buddie content. And that's to go back to what I was saying earlier. I am not saying that I have been successfully queer baited, that I'm okay with being queer baited. But on a certain level, just like as a shipper, as someone who likes Buddie, I've almost sort of, the idea of this end goal of Buddie going canon, I still want it, but it's almost taken a bit of a backseat to me because I really have no idea what to expect. That's another thing. I think this whole kind of like there's got to be a word for this, the shipper mentality where like you are only interested in canon.
I think hyperfixating is the word,
no, it's like,
on canon.
It's sort of like the way some people have like a structuralist film theory. I feel like there's like a canonist or a structuralist shipping theory where people are only interested in the like means to an end of canon and endgame. And then I think there's sort of the more old-fashioned shipper mentality where it's like, I just really enjoy being a shipper. I enjoy seeing these two on my screen, and I enjoy thinking about them and writing and reading fan fiction and, drawing and consuming fan art and stuff. And to me, I have shifted more towards being that type of shipper over the last year. And
same.
The show is kind of delivering for me. Even though we haven't gotten any movement on Buddie canon, we've gotten so much just Buddie content. And like I said, this season, no love interests. That's so notable and so interesting that I kind of feel like, I'm not saying it's enough, but it's like almost enough for me. I'm not saying, I don't want Tim Minear to listen to this and be like, haha, I can keep doing this to them for the next 10 years. But it's like, I guess
if he's listening, he hasn't listened this far. Let's be honest about that.
We don't know. We don't know how much he listens. We don't. But it's like the way that people were crashing out over this season, I was kind of like, you guys, you're giving like, oh, my steak is too juicy, my lobster's too buttery, I'm like, I feel like we've gotten the biggest Buddie feast we've gotten in years, possibly ever. Just like nonstop Buddie, no romantic competition. Sure, it's not canon, but like they've been like living and dying for each other this season, and they've gotten so many moments together, so many fun scenes. And you're dooming like like this is supposed to be the fun part. Yeah. This is supposed to be the part where you obsess over the scenes of them together and you just enjoy sort of the togetherness and the characters. And I'm not saying you have to be okay with that. Like if you're a more structuralist shipper, the term I just coined, and you do only care about canon, then like that's fine. But I also think that, it might be time to temper those expectations because people ask me like, do you think Buddie's going canon? And it's like, I have no idea anymore. I know better than to expect it to happen. And if and when it happens, I think it will become clear throughout the season, which is why I thought it was happening in season 8, right? I think we'll see an arc happening versus like, when it hasn't happened the whole season and we have one episode left and people are like, oh yeah, Buddie canon tonight. I'm like, you might, if you seriously believe that, you might need to temper those expectations. Because, I mean, who knows? Tim Minear is such a wild card. Maybe he would just have it randomly happen in some episode. But
I mean, I could see that, but
I feel like it's going to be kind of clear when it is happening, and I just don't know what to expect. So at this point, I'm kind of just enjoying the ride if they're going to keep giving us like kind of good Buddie content.
Well, I want to echo that. I want to echo what you're saying about, being that kind of fandom person operating in fandom in that way, because not only does it feel healthier and more sustainable in my experience, because I've been both kinds. But I also, I think it's really true that, when we're being provided this kind of buddy feast, even if it's a non-canon buddy feast in the strictest sense, what Tim is essentially offering us with these episodes and these scenes is a canvas, and like, if you are this invested in fandom and you want it to go canon, but you're also reading fanfic, you're writing fanfic, you're making fan art about things, I do wonder at what point fiction becomes enough, right? Because canon, especially if you're an artist, canon is kind of what you make of it. And I have to wonder, and this is the thing that I was going to say before Jane so rudely cut me off all those hours ago.
Yeah, sorry, Ryan, sorry,
no,
everybody.
Good. I waited for the buddy section, and we're here.
Kind. You guys, it's working. Ryan, you're so kind.
Thank you. It's World Kindness Day. It's not. I do have to wonder what Buddy going canon would do to change the shape of the fandom, what it would do to change the vibe of the fandom, because for so long, for literally like 8 years now, the fandom has been built around the hypothetical future or the, fan and present of these two men getting it on. And when you canonize that, when you canonize a relationship, first of all, what if they depict it in a way that you don't like? Which is always a possibility, because there have been so many years built up and so many different versions of this story told.
And there are so many different buddy shippers who all have their own perfect version of it in their heads, and they're never going to please all of them.
Exactly. Like, they could go so many routes with it, and it's very possible that the route that they go with it, if they do choose to canonize it, won't be enough, because it's not being depicted in the way that you need it to be depicted for you in that moment. And at the same time, I wonder if that going canon and that effect taking place, or if it's not taking place and it is acclaimed and everybody loves it, will that still change the vibe of the fandom to the point where people may start to lose interest in it just a tiny bit? Because I can only speak from my perspective on this, but like, I think I was talking to you about this. I was either talking to you about this or one of my other friends who's in fandom about this.
A lot of it is the thrill of the chase.
It's the thrill of the chase, right? Because I was seeing a lot of discourse in the heated rivalry fandom and a lot of fan action in the heated rivalry fandom. And I was thinking to myself, I don't know that I would ever read heated rivalry fanfic, because like, I watched the show, you know what I mean? Like,
you can only go so much further.
Like, I've seen them do a lot, and I feel pretty satisfied with that. So I don't feel an impetus to go on AO3 and read like an 80,000 word fic about Shane and Ilya through, I don't know, through the decade from a certain POV or with more description. I don't know. I already saw all 6
like
episodes.
Like that one horror movie that came out recently.
Oh God, I don't want to see from the dog's perspective.
Yes, although some people like are built like that and will read that the super long fan fiction because they just love heated rivalry that much, and that's fine. But yes, I think kind of, and this is why, a lot of people like to say, oh, why does whatever non-canon ship get more attention than whatever canon ship? And sometimes there are things at play, like, people favoring the white man or whatever. But at the same time, it's always been true that a non-canon ship is always going to have a bigger fan base because it fuels that speculation. And I think the majority of the fun of shipping is that it is something that hasn't happened yet. It's the tension and the coming up with your own versions of things. And yes, the thrill of the chase, the thrill of getting those little breadcrumbs from the work and then creating your own thing in your mind. I completely agree. I think if and when it goes canon, it's at the very least not going to please everyone. And at worst, it might turn a lot of people on the show. And at neutral, it might, just lead to a lot of people kind of becoming less active in the fandom because they'll have gotten what they wanted in a sense. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I think I'm enjoying shipping Buddy, and I really still do want it to go canon. And I'm the kind of person where, like, whatever it is, I'll take it. I will be excited about it. I see people like make these tweets sometimes like, if they just like have Buddy be canon in like the last episode of the show, I don't even want it. And I'm like raising my hand like, I'll take it. What are you guys on? Like, I don't care. Yeah, I would prefer it if they made it canon earlier, but like, that's still Buddy canon. Like, what? Oh my God, 2 cakes. Like, what's your guys' problem? I understand, right? But I also don't. Like, I want it. I want it. I want it, period. I don't care how it happens. And I guess maybe that's been a journey for me to get there.
I think that might be one of the things, because Tim has spoken about this, like in a veiled way, that where like the veil is sheer and you can see right through it.
Not wanting to
where
just
he's
wrap
spoken
it up.
about like not wanting to just wrap it up. And I think this, like, the burden of expectation might be a part of that. I mean, we've seen it with artists time and again. It's the thing that's keeping George R.R. Martin from fucking releasing The Winds of Winter. I'm reading the books right now, and I'm dreading getting to A Dance with Dragons, because I know it's going to be over.
He knows that he can keep people on the hook by continuing to stretch it out. And like, as long as he can do that, he will continue to do that. I'm not saying I like it necessarily. Like, I do think he's missing the point that you can still think of interesting things to do with Buddy once they are a couple. And in fact, I think there could be a lot of interesting things to do. And if he really wants to keep stretching out the tension but also make it canon, he could go the secret relationship route. But I don't write the show.
I must theorize, because I've been waffling on this ever since we had the idea to do like a season 9 wrap up episode, which is that, the crash out that has occurred within the fandom, or at least within a part of the fandom, over the finale. It does feel unique to this season in a way that is somewhat ineffable, right? It's like it's hard to discern what exactly is making people crash out so hard, and I have to assume it's the fact that it's the lack of surrounding circumstances to distract from what's gone on.
Everybody was busy grieving Bobby last season.
Yeah, and in season 7, it was a limited season. Buck was by, and it didn't wrap up super well. We had the Buck
Tommies to distract us that season. That's what was going on.
We had the Buck Tommies to distract us. There was so much
discourse and like dynamics being created between fans.
And then in season 6, I mean,
season
like,
6 was the
show
it could
was getting
possibly
canceled. And they were both in relationships. Like, there was crash outs to be had, but they were not centralized around necessarily not Buddy canon. It was that show over, maybe.
And also not just no Buddy canon, but like literally the worst, like, triple punch.
The bad ending.
The bad ending.
Got the bad ending.
We're in the bad place. I totally agree. And that's kind of, in my opinion, a point towards this season. Look at, it's, and I guess just an example of people never being satisfied. Like, we got kind of one of the best case scenarios we could get without Buddy canon, in my opinion. Like, no love interests in sight, a new baby on the way for our 2 dads, and and like,
maybe a dog to go with it. Who knows?
This long season of like charged, intense Buddy interactions. But when there's nothing worse going on, then of course now the problem is a new thing. And I really want to clarify, I'm not trying to say that it's like invalid to be exhausted at the fact that this has been going on for 9 seasons. I do get it, or I guess 8, like season 1 it wasn't really a thing, but I've seen some people, and I think this is slightly cope, but I have seen some people frame it as like, you have to understand, we're only on the like 3rd season at ABC, and they were practically restarting Buddy from 0 at season 7. I think that's kind of cope. I think we can still acknowledge that it's been a really long time, but also I think, unfortunately,
it's not like the show's broken down on Hulu. Like, the first 6 seasons are Fox, and then you have to tab to another show for ABC.
We do still have all that build up and all that stuff, but I do think something we do maybe have to make peace with is, as long as the show keeps getting renewed and Buddy isn't canon, I think Tim Minear will want to keep stretching it out. And I guess the way to make peace with that I have is, like, to me, that doesn't rule out Buddy canon, but it does mean that, like, there's not gonna be an instant gratification, nor is there gonna be, like, it might not even really make sense in the story. Like, if it were up to me, I would have had them go canon, like, in season 8, I think I think that's also a reason I crashed out a little at the time, is I was kind of mourning what I had perceived as like the perfect time to do Buddie. And now that that moment has passed, yeah, I feel more at peace with the idea that it could get stretched out longer and longer. Because I'm like, you know what?
It could be whenever.
Yeah, I'm sitting pretty right now. I don't really care. Just like don't force Eddie into any more like loveless relationships with women he has no chemistry with, and I'll be okay.
Yeah. No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And listen, guys, more seasons of it being stretched out, remember, is just
That's
more
your
canvas for you to wipe on. So, you know, like in that regard, like, you know, what's that old Toni Morrison quote that I've mentioned before, which is that if there is a book that that has not been written but you want to read, then you must write it, right? So, you know,
and I
find
again,
your peace, find your bliss. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what else
and again,
to say.
I would not judge anyone for like not being satisfied with the idea that this could just go on forever. Like, I do very much understand that they are stringing us along, and you can argue that plenty of this has been queerbaiting. But like, I personally, and I think you personally, like, we're okay with it. We're having fun. If you're not having fun, then like that's okay. And it might mean that you're just not that into what the show is offering anymore. And that's not like a you problem. It is like, yeah, the show is kind of doing something a little shitty and unfair, but I think I've just like, they're satisfying me with what they're offering right now. But if they're not satisfying you, that's valid. I don't think it's as valid to be like really hard crashing out, to be like, you can be crashing out. But what bothered me was like, why seek out people that are having a good time and try to make them unhappy because you are unhappy? That's the part I think is not fair.
It's just the fucking illustration of like, you guys are all not like having fun in the wrong way, and it's like a group of people and just one of them just leans over and goes thumbs up.
Yeah, like, you know,
do you want to be that guy?
Yeah,
like, do you want to be that guy?
You can crash out about it, but if people are having fun, I don't get why you have to like seek out their shit and be like, fuck you, you're stupid for even still engaging with the show.
Well, speaking of Jane.
Well, yes. I asked you all for your season 9 hot takes. I wanted to start with this one from longtime listener and longtime subscriber of mine. I'm so sorry, I never know how to pronounce the name. I think it's like a scam thing, like SKAM, that show. So I think it might be like Norwegian. It's Neivilde, I think is how it's pronounced. I looked it up on Google Translate last time. Anyway, our good friend, that name, says, hot take, I think this season showed me that even if we get Buddie canon, the way we're gonna get it won't be satisfying. Like, I won't complain when it happens, but it won't be good. It probably took me some time to accept it, because in season 8 they seem to really be building up to a feelings realization for Buck, but the show is very bad at committing to arcs. They'll start a cool idea and then completely drop it by the end of the season. They'll do something just because it's cool in this one episode and not think of the long-term impact. Every time one good writing thing happens, 5 bad things happen at the same time. 'Tis the nature of the show, and I must accept it. So I just thought of this when you were talking about the idea that people might not ever be satisfied with Buddie canon. So, like, on one hand, I do agree that it does often seem in these recent seasons especially that, like, every time something you like happens, there will be a bunch of like weird misfires at the same time. But, you know, like we just said, I think Buddie canon, it's probably good to acknowledge that it might not be satisfying, but, you know, I don't know. I'm really just like not feeling negative about Buddie at all anymore. I'm like, this is awesome. Yeah, I'm having fun.
Yeah.
Rip to everyone else.
You know, I broached this, and I want to say that, like, I agree with the sentiment that's being expressed that I don't think it'll be satisfying for everyone, but that's going to be my caveat, is for everyone. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you said, like, I get 2 cakes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
you get your own
mind.
fanon, and you get the show forcing those guys to kiss.
Exactly. Like, I get to have my cake and eat it too. It's a great time. Like, I don't mind personally. I do understand what they mean about, like, you know, every time one good writing things happens, 5 bad things happen at the same time. Mm-hmm. I understand that mentality. I think
it's been less true in season 9.
Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with it for this season specifically. I would more so for 9A, but for 9B, I think this show's on an upward trajectory.
There were more hits
I'm
than
not
misses.
ashamed to say that, you know?
Yeah.
So
I totally do understand, though, because, the things that bothered me about seasons 7 and 8 is that I really, like I said, it just felt like this sort of, like, crazy, random mess where, yeah, maybe something I like would happen, but there would just be all these like bizarre other things happening, things that would feel out of character, things that would feel like they came out of nowhere or that were like weird for the world, that weren't grounded. And so, you know, look up Nayvilde, because I think that season 9, when you really think about it, I think season 9 has gotten better at that. So I really hope that, yeah, this upswing continues, and maybe the future hypothetical buddy canon won't be that unsatisfying. But who knows? We got a couple different comments about the space arc. So we have like 2 conflicting ideas here. Someone on Twitter, actually our beloved mutual, Diana. Shout out to Diana, because
shout out to Diana.
Partly she's fun and she has like a positive attitude about things always, but also I just like when like a big player on 911 Twitter follows us, because it makes me feel less like everybody hates us and wants us to die. So Diana said, stands up bravely. Space arc was good. A little stretched out, but good overall. Halo emoji. And then somebody else on, somebody named Felix on our YouTube said, 4 episodes in space was too much for me. It became so formulaic and was. I know this is silly to say about 911, the ultimate shark jump for me. Yeah, so we have 2 conflicting, I guess they both think that it took a little too long, and we agreed with that.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think these ideas are more aligned than they may initially appear, but they go off in such interesting, like, divergent directions, which is so funny.
I'm interested by the idea that the space arc was the ultimate shark jump, because, like, in theory, I agree, but then the way they executed it was, like, I don't want to say surprisingly grounded, but, like, a lot more grounded than I feel it could have been, you know? It wasn't like Armageddon up there or whatever, you know? It was kind of, they were trying to make it a little, dare I say, realistic, in ways that, I don't know, like the cruise ship didn't really feel, right? Or like the B-NATO or whatever.
I would agree with that. You know, it also felt topical, you know, even like down to like the wardrobe choices.
It was doing this sort of like Elon Musk parody, or like the Jeff
Katy
Bezos
Perry.
going to space. Yeah, Katy Perry. I will say, I was looking at like just the episode list of the season, because like I said, I haven't rewatched anything yet. And I must admit, I remember virtually nothing about what the 118 were doing on the ground when the space arc was happening. And I feel like that's maybe a bit of a point against the arc, is like I actually do remember the space stuff.
Miss Diva was getting her leg amputated in the flooding.
Okay, that part was good.
Train.
That part, I was actually going to list that as a high point. That was like the first moment in the season where I was like, "Ooh, this is good. This is like feeling grounded. This is feeling emotional."
Yeah.
But that's the only part I remember. That's the only part I remember.
I remember when they were linking with Nashville, and they were like shoehorning in a Nashville crossover right at the top.
But we don't remember that because it was good, right?
No, not at all. I think like Harry was doing his "I'm not in high school anymore, I dropped out, I'm a barista" thing.
I do vaguely remember that like May was holding down the fort at I remember that they sort of turned the station into like a field hospital, but what I don't remember is like, wasn't there a geostorm?
Oh yeah.
And like that was the whole focus of that promo that got memed on and is still memed on to this day, but like I don't remember that even really happening. Like, did that happen?
Well, yeah, there was a geostorm that knocked a bunch of satellites out of orbit and like into the atmosphere, and so that's why they were all crashing, and that's why the promo happened with Alex Warren playing in the background.
Episode 3 is called "The Sky is Falling." I'm gonna be so real. I don't really remember the sky falling. I remember that one girl got into that situation where she had to get her leg cut off, and like that's too bad.
No, I remember it, and I feel like if I watched it, I would be like, oh yeah, that part, because like I remember really enjoying it, like way more than I expected to, and I think that I don't necessarily think it's a knock on the episodes, where if it's the first 4 episodes of your 18 episode season, and like a lot of it happens in space, that your memory of those first 4 episodes will take place primarily in space.
Fair.
Because space is a very high real estate setting for your story, and it'll probably consume a lot of your attention. So
yeah, it's hard to compete with the space.
But I agree with these people that it was dragged out too long. Especially, I noticed it specifically in that last episode. That last episode was just too much for me, because the pacing was just
I really don't know why They had to do 4 episodes of it. And I was noticing, looking back at the episodes, they did like a pretty early hiatus for the season. Like they went on hiatus, I think, at episode 6, which is, of course, not actually it's not the halfway point in the season. So that was a little odd.
Yeah.
And knowing that our first half of the season, essentially, that we saw before they took like a 2-month break was like 4/6 of it was 2/3, one might even say 2/3 of it was the space arc. Like that's kind of weird, and I think made it feel like the season was even smaller at first than it was, or that it would eventually become.
Talking about this season is insane because yes, it does feel smaller, and yet they were in space.
Yeah, right. We also got a couple different comments about the post-Bobby dynamic, and I thought that was interesting.
Yes.
JH on Twitter said, and this was the tweet that got the most likes in our reply, "My hot take, the execution was a bit iffy, but I'm actually enjoying the post-Bobby dynamic a lot and think it adds a lot to the show. It's awesome seeing Chim as Cap and seeing some of the other characters, especially Buck, without their rock. I think Widow Athena is less successful," they said. And somebody on YouTube, Heather, said, "Hot take, I think killing Bobby actually did make this season so much better. I think they could have done it without killing him off, but I think the effects of his death post-season 8 have been used almost exclusively to better the show. And they say at this point, if a fan fiction refuses to let Bobby be dead, it'll ruin the fic for me a little bit, especially if they still try to grapple with the grief of his death, but refuse to actually let him be dead." Yeah, interesting. I haven't encountered that a whole lot in fan fiction myself. I just haven't been reading that many 911 fan fictions in the last year.
Same.
But that is funny that the idea that there are still fan fiction authors clinging. I occasionally see someone still clinging on to being a Bobby alive truther, and I respect it because I love having.
I mean, our friend Kyla. Shout out to Kyla.
Shout out to Bobby's Empty Coffin on Twitter. Our friend Kyla. I do think it's really funny to be still holding on to Bobby alive truthing. And listen. Did we ever see a body? It could still happen. But I appreciate
Where is the body?
But I appreciate this perspective of
Akira is the body. Sorry.
This maybe actually has added things to the show. Because, look, I feel like I wasn't really thinking about it that much in the moment. But looking back on it, especially that comment about, it's been interesting to see characters not have their rock. I think that's true because sometimes when you watch older seasons of the show, it's like all the characters are having their drama and it's going along, and then they'll just go to Bobby for advice. And unless he is actively having his own really dramatic storyline in the middle of it, which doesn't happen as often, I feel like, as it did with the other characters.
Yeah, it's somewhat uncommon.
He is just this very objective kind of voice of reason, almost like the god of the show. And that's fine. We all loved Bobby, but I do think, it does feel like people are a little more open to having problems without Bobby being in their lives.
Tim is so edgy. He killed God. He's so edgy.
Right. And so, obviously we don't quite agree with Chimney's captain arc being as successful. I mean, to be fair, I hadn't really had much of a problem with it until hearing you describe what, I would agree with you that it definitely could have delivered a lot more. But yeah, other characters, especially Buck, especially Eddie, especially Athena having just kind of a less moored vibe on the show is an interesting place for us to be this late in the show. It's kind of nice to go back to things not feeling so routine and so set in their ways.
I agree. I think that as loath as I was to accept the landing that they attempted to stick in season 8, this season is doing what I wanted it to with Dead Bobby, which is shake up the dynamics. And I think it has been largely successful at that, especially with going for more of a grounded storytelling approach this season. In space, and getting kidnapped by this lady. I don't have anything to say other than I agree. It's working for me, and I am looking forward to seeing where else they take it. But also, it just made room on the show. The show was kind of running out of room for a while for new things to happen.
Yeah,
and
totally.
That's kind of what killing off a character in a show like this is for, is to make room for more storytelling to happen. I mean, Grey's Anatomy is notorious for this. Game of Thrones, Walking Dead were all notorious for this. But it's an effective storytelling motif for a reason. I mean, it has been for centuries.
And we did always say we were
even.
okay with the idea of Bobby being killed off because of these opportunities it would open up. And then, by the end of season 8, we were like, well, the execution was off and the way they stuck the landing was off. So I don't know if we can defend this anymore. But yes, as a beat now, it has aged a little better than it started out. But yeah, I think that that actual how it happened is always going to feel a little it's gonna hurt a little that it had to be just this kind of random, like, wacky cartoon storyline in the middle of the season as opposed to something more like foreshadowed and kind of relevant to Bobby's character and stuff.
I wouldn't say it aged like wine, but it didn't age like milk either.
It's
I
like
think
the
it
decision aged
like...
better than people thought it was, but the execution is still milk, I would say.
I would say r/ aged like can of beans. You know, you buy them and you don't like that you have to buy them because you don't have a lot of money, but then they're sitting in your cupboard for a while, and then you look at them and you're like, baked beans actually sounds really nice right now.
Or you're like, I actually would love to add some extra protein and fiber to this soup I'm making right now.
Right? Like, aged like can of beans.
Yeah, they're not that exciting when they first happen, but they can come in clutch in the long run.
Shout out to Dead Bobby.
Shout out to Dead Bobby. I'm always saying Dead Bobby is like
Bobby's
a can
empty
of beans.
can.
Everybody pour out a can of beans tonight for Dead Bobby. Finally, a lot of these are obviously kind of things we've already touched on, but here's one we haven't touched on yet that you even foreshadowed earlier. Jackie Taylor Skank Era, a classic follower of ours, classic move, says, Buddy kidnapping episode was not a masterpiece the way people keep acting like it is. I had loads of fun, don't get me wrong, but I was very shocked when it got rated higher than the Tsunami episodes. Yes, Jackie Taylor Skank Era, I am right there with you. This is what Ryan was alluding to earlier. My only hot take about season 9B, other than us like not doing about Buddy, I guess, is that, that episode was fun. It had a lot of fun Buddy moments. I loved that ending when they're like running to each other and that exchange. I think I said on Twitter at the time, like, this is low-key like the most romantic thing they've ever said to each other. But when he's like you should see the other guy, and Buck says, I am the other guy, and Eddie says, I know. Like, for me, that was enough for the whole... That was enough, like, Buddy Cannon crumbs for the whole season for me. Because, come on. Like, that's just dialogue. That's not the kind of dialogue we've gotten in a long time. But the actual... And I am okay... I want to say we haven't even touched on the Buck addiction thing. I was glad that they used this cartoony kidnapping to actually have real consequences. And I enjoyed the addiction storyline as it was happening. I'm a little miffed that it kind of got completely dropped in the last few episodes. It kind of felt like they then got it's very classic Tim Minear being like a dog. Sorry. There's been a lot of Tim Minear shade in this episode, but that's the nature of a season recap episode. Sorry, Timmy, if you're still listening.
Hello.
But you know, like when a dog is like playing with a toy or something, and then they like see a squirrel or they like see a different toy, and they just like completely change
done
course
with it.
And forget about the first thing. I feel like Tim Minear does that, and I feel like, you know, he had decided to go with the pill addiction thing, and then he saw the squirrel in the distance of bringing back the sperm donor storyline and giving Buck a kid, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna run over there and just leave pill addiction Buck in the grass." And I understand that, like, I guess they technically wrapped it up, but like, there's barely a mention of it, I'm pretty sure, in the last couple episodes. And
I can't remember a single mention other than, like, I guess when they're being audited.
In that episode, when the 118 is on trial and Buck is not at work, I think they mention, like, I'm gonna have to like sit down and have this sort of review to see if I can come back to work. And then we just like don't see that, and he's just back at work in like the next episode. I think they probably,
without a mention.
I think they probably should have just picked one of those storylines, either Buck having an addiction storyline or fostering a kid. I think both of them in the latter half of the season was just too much. And yes, the episode itself, the kidnapping episode itself, I just think I didn't like it for a lot of the reasons that I didn't like the Maddie kidnapping episode. It's just this extremely over-the-top cartoonish thing. It does not feel grounded in reality on any level. It's so ridiculous. It's so I think Tim Minear loves this kind of thing. He loves to kind of reference movies with his things, but it's like...
He did it with Tarlos as well, I think, in Lone Star.
I'm sure. And like for me, I just would have preferred, you could even have him be kidnapped, but make it something that maybe ties into something we've already seen in the season, or like something we know to be true about Buck. Instead, it's just like this maybe a character we've already known. Instead, it's just like this random like horror movie plot just plopped into this one episode and like introduced and, completed in this one episode. And like, that's great that he had his trauma after and his addiction, like that's interesting, but that could have come out of any storyline where he had a near-death experience, right? It doesn't feel particularly related to like this mother's boy thing. We don't even see him really. The only
thing that needs to be established is that he like gets pain meds, you know what I mean?
And had like
they could just be in peril.
A vaguely traumatic experience. So he could have gotten in a regular ass car crash, frankly. I just think, again, love the buddy moments. I think it's really fun to have this episode where Eddie's like looking for a missing Buck, and especially in this weird like creepy town where everybody's kind of turned against them and is like being homophobic to them. That stuff was really compelling. I think I preferred the Eddie side of the episode a lot more than the Buck side, because you would go to Eddie and it felt kind of grounded, and you had this like interesting dark element of like everybody seemingly like it kind of feels like this like sundown town for gay people, like everybody's saying all these microaggressions to Eddie, and then you cut to Buck and he's in like a Dar Man video. he's in like one of those AI generated TikToks that like boomers watch, that's like she was kidnapped by the like it's just a complete non sequitur, and it's so goofy.
He's in a Lifetime movie. I mean, that's what he's in. He's in a Lifetime movie, I don't get me wrong. I love a Lifetime movie. I appreciated the drama that they were putting Buck through. I thought Oliver Stark gave a great performance when being struck by that cattle prod.
Sure.
His screams of agony were very compelling. And I love seeing Buck in pain, but at the same time, it just felt very removed from reality and contrasting what was great happening with Eddie on the ground, Like, why couldn't
Buck, like, maybe this would be too dark, but even if Buck just got, like, kidnapped by some weird homophobes in the small town, like, that would have just been, like, a more real...
I don't think that would have been too dark. I don't think that would have been too dark. I mean, they did the fucking...
They did do the Josh
horrible
thing.
They did the Josh thing. They did the horrible serial rapist in season 5.
That's
and
true.
Then they did, like, and then they did the human trafficking thing that we loved in this season. So I don't think it would have been too dark. If anything, I think it would have been
I guess I just
woke.
mean to say something that would have been both like just a little more like grounded, like something you could see happening. It would have tied into that scene we saw of them in the bar, like instead of just being this unrelated, like, oh, the waitress in that scene was secretly a crazy maniac who wants to replace her comatose son. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying it had to be this grave thing of Buck being like assaulted by homophobes, but like just something that would actually, and that would like tie into like a revelation about himself that we had in these past 2 seasons that like, I'm not saying I want to see Buck experience homophobia, but it is true that like we haven't really seen him encounter any like discrimination before because of this or anything, and like that is one. I'm not saying I want or need that. I'm just saying like that is one unexplored avenue of him being bisexual.
I kind of want and need that, but that's just me.
And you're a gay man, so you can say that.
Thank you. But at the same time, like I also do want to like shout out one of our followers who responded to this, like with about the hen thing, the Buck pill thing, Summer Sonnet on Twitter, one of our loyal Respodcast listeners who's been following us for quite a while, and I want to echo what they said when they were talking about the Buck pill thing being wrapped up too quickly, which you mentioned as well. In that, I agree with you that they should have committed to either one story or the other, because it's just such a sensitive subject, like something like addiction, and like as we are aware, like you don't just detox and then you never want oxy again. Like that's not how addiction works. And like the show has done relatively good at depicting addiction and sobriety and recovery and that sort of thing in the past with Bobby, and they're intentionally trying to draw a parallel with Bobby, but they're taking this shortcut that it's reminding me of when season 2 of Euphoria was wrapping up, and I knew some people who had struggled with addiction who didn't like the closing narration from Rue, how she talked about, and I stayed clean for the rest of the year. That being too clean of a wrap up for that season. Don't get me wrong, Euphoria is a hot mess now, but that show is kind of all about that subject. And, even that is considered too clean and neat of a packaged little bow to wrap up a storyline. I don't think a show like this necessarily has the teeth to dig into that. So I honestly think they should have just gone with the kid thing.
Yeah.
If they were gonna go with the pills thing, the addiction thing, they needed a lot more time to do it than just a couple episodes. Don't get me wrong, I'm not like regretting like the time that I spent watching it. I thought that the episode itself was effective, and I did think it was good. It's just the things that happened after, where it basically vanished. And it was just professional consequences that felt minimizing of the issue.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't remember if I ever like said this anywhere or if this was just a thought I had once. It wasn't in my version of season 9, but I have thought before that one really interesting place to take Buck post Bobby's death would be if Buck became an alcoholic, to cope. And I feel like it would almost create this very
cope
like sort
harder,
of
Buck.
I feel like it would create, for one thing, I think you could build to it a lot more gradually than just like him as a direct result of being kidnapped, getting this very sudden pill addiction. Because that is, I believe, how opioid addiction often works, is it does come on very suddenly. I think they acknowledged that in the episode. Like it can take like only like 5 weeks or maybe shorter than that for someone
like
to develop
5 times
to develop
uses.
like a medical addiction, like dependency on those things. So that's just kind of the nature of that substance. But I feel like an alcoholism type of thing can come on a lot subtler, and it would be such a explicit echo of Bobby. I feel like there would be this sort of like tragic irony, almost like in the sense that it would almost link them more as father and son, in this symbolic way, is like, oh, they almost share this like magical realist genetic condition in a way. I don't know. That's like in the abstract. I think that would be an interesting theme there. And it could be like a season-long struggle versus just having this kind of be introduced as this, again, very direct result of a very kind of not very grounded thing that and very random thing that happened to Buck. And then wrapping it up so fast, like clearly they don't really want to deal with it in more depth. So
it provides like a root cause and escape for addiction scenarios, which is often not how it manifests in life. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are examples of addiction having root causes, but again, like you said, those things are often gradual or they're messy, and having a clean in and out of that kind of thing feels reductive, and it feels divorced from the reality of that kind of thing. And I'm not crazy about it. But again, I also don't hate the episode where Buck is, having his pill moment.
No,
I don't hate that episode at all.
That episode and the one before it, when it's sort of this mystery of what's going on with Buck and then the reveal at the end. I liked those 2 episodes a lot. It's just the stuff leading up to it and the stuff after, unfortunately, didn't quite deliver for me. And I think
so
they
it's more of a PSA, I guess, that like if you're gonna do like an addiction storyline, just ground it a little bit.
Right. Or like Tim Minear, if you could turn back time, you should have made it maybe alcoholism and made it an arc throughout an entire season is what I would have done. And maybe don't
tomorrow
have him get
an article
kidnapped.
Appears and then it's Tim Minear saying,
I
can't believe that worked.
Oh my God. One of my favorite Twitter threads of all time. But that's about all I have. We have a few other hot takes, but I think most of the other ones we covered in our other sections. I know we're over time here, but I feel like it's a bonus episode, so we're allowed to go over 2 hours.
It's fine. You guys are all listening to this of your own free
Tim
will
Minear
and
is still
volition
listening
anyways.
Because he gives us that watch time. We love that about him.
He does. So thank you guys for listening. I'm curious, Jane, how did season 9 compare to your season 9 in your mind?
Right. Right. Like, did we get anything right? Is an interesting idea. I'm trying to remember what I even wrote for my season 9. I mean, yours was a little more out there than mine.
But here's the thing, Jane. The broad strokes of mine had some things in common with the season 9 that we got. Mm-hmm. Space as an element. Athena Grant detective arc.
That's true. Space. Okay. You did get space right.
I believe. No, the personal crisis wasn't. Oh, actually, Buck fucking. Buck fucking was in this season.
There are many characters fucked in this season. You got May Ravi. You know that they in your season they didn't fuck each other. I didn't
theorize May Ravi, but they were fucking, yes. What else came true?
I had a Bobby Alive subplot. I forgot I even did that.
Yeah, you did have a Bobby Alive subplot.
My Hen and Chimney rivalry storyline, although it didn't result from them feuding over Captain, they did have a little rivalry, a little heated rivalry.
A little heated rivalry.
So to speak. I did not get my musical episode. I'm still holding out for that.
I didn't either.
I think they should make it Hello Dolly themed now. But that's just because, my interests ebb and flow like the tides.
I've also switched my musical episode theming because when I said it to you, I said Evanescence, and I said that on air. I would actually like to update this. I think that 911 musical episode should be a tribute to the wonderful and the delightful world of Dolly Parton. I think that would be so much fun.
Yes.
I think like a little Dolly episode, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Especially like Dolly deep cuts. Who's gonna like get up there and sing like The Grass is Blue? You know what I mean?
Wildflowers,
we need to get into like
from
her
the Trio album. That's such a Buck song. It's a very Sagittarius kind of song. I don't know.
And then we could also get Islands in the Stream reprise.
Yeah.
Get Islands in the Stream reprise, but with Buddie. Hello.
Yes.
Or May Ravi, if you want to make it het. But anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for listening to this season 9 bonus episode. If you would like to send us more of your hot takes or just engage with us, support us further, all that stuff, follow us on social media at First Respodcast, spelled how it sounds. If you'd like to support us even further than that, you can subscribe to our Patreon, where this month the winning topic for our bonus episode is our greatest fanfic woes. Ooh.
Yeah, we're very excited for fanfic woes. It'll be things like, we will not be like naming and shaming any specific fan fictions necessarily, but it'll be more like tropes we don't love, the things that sort of take us out of a fan fiction, and perhaps some anonymous citations.
I think the anonymous citations will be an important element in the episode. So subscribe if you would like to hear us tear at a new one, and tune back in on Friday for our regularly scheduled First Respodcast, where we will be covering season 5, episode 16.
Yes.
Keep an ear out.
And Ryan, at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that Buddie Cannon season 10.
Buddie Cannon season 10. Guys, this is gonna be our year!
Who's with us?
Who's with us? Not Twitter!